which states about the quantity, which is 1000, price per unit, which is 80, the fixed cost, which is 5000, and the variable cost per unit, which is 30. And I have calculated the profit. So I can show you the formula that how I have the calculated profit. If you understood that how profit is calculated, kindly write yes in the chat window, that so that we can proceed further. I don't think so the calculating profit will be a big deal for you. It's a simple mathematical calculation, multiplying per unit selling price and the cost and subtracting it with the quantity. So if you understand this profit formula, then kindly write yes in the chat window. All right, thank you for the feedback. So let's come to the scenario manager. Okay, so first listen it very carefully. So I am describing the conceptual side of the scenario manager, that how and when you have to utilize the scenario manager. Okay, so basically scenarios are another of Excel what if analysis tool, and we know about it, and which like the data tables as well. And when I will switch to the example practically, so you can get an idea that how it can be utilized. And also we have some very good features in the scenario manager as well. So scenarios are basically like different versions of the same worksheet models, and which each version using a different set of input values. We can define different input values, more than two even, which was not in the case of Google Seek and the data table, right? And before creating a scenario, you need to construct your model on the worksheet and decide which cells to be the input cells or the changing cells. So we need to very carefully define them. Okay, and to make it easier, you create scenarios to make the resulting summary reports more comprehensible. Okay, so let's quickly jump to the scenario practically, and we will be creating three different scenarios which are already written on your screen. That is base, present, and the base best. Okay, let's start. So for applying the scenario manager, what we need to do is we will go to the data tab, what if analysis, and we will click on scenario manager. Okay, so there will be a dialog window of scenario manager will appear on your screen, and we have some multiple options available, and I will try to explain it. So the first, as by default there is no scenarios has been created, so first we need to create a scenario. So for doing that, we need to click on add button. Okay, so when we click on add button, first field is saying us that define the name of the scenario. So let's say first we define the base scenario. Okay, the second field says which cells you need to change in this scenario. So I need to change two cells. The first one is price per unit, that's the selling price, and the second one is variable cost per unit, because fixed cost will remain the same. So I would like to change cell B4, and if you want to change multiple cells, you have to add comma space and then select the next cell. Okay, and I will come to this protection side which says the prevent changes in the hide. I will discuss this later on after I will finish this example, that when we can use this prevent changes in the hide option in the scenario manager. But first, let me quickly review. First, we define the name of the scenario, then the changing cells. Okay, so we are in our case we need to change two cells, and I will press OK. So when I press OK, the scenario values screen now appear, and on those two cells I need to set a value. So for example, I need to set price per unit to a lower side, which is 70. For example, my new value will be 70 of price per unit, and my variable cost per unit will be 25 in the base scenario. Okay, and I will click OK. So now you can see that you have a base scenario available on your spreadsheet. Okay, now we will add two more scenarios, which is the present and the best one. So for the present, again I will click on add button. I will define a name to it, and I need to change these two cells B4 and B6, which is absolutely right, and I will press OK. So for the present scenario, definitely we will go with the present prices, which are price per unit 80 and variable cost per unit is 30. So now we have two scenarios, and then we have the last scenario, which is the best scenario. So we will again click on add button. We will define the name of the scenario. Definitely we want to change the B4 and B6 in our case, but remember that in your case, if you are working on a PNL or any other kind of a report, you might have more than 2 or 3 variable as well. Okay. So now in the best scenario, I need to increase the price per unit, which will be 120, and the variable cost per unit will be. Now we have 3 different cases: base, present, and the best. Now the awesome part of this utility scenario manager is, for example, if your manager says, convert this entire data into the best scenario, I need to analyze this current scenario in the best scenario. So as we know, we have already defined the best scenario variables within this scenario manager feature. So what we can do is, I will just click on best and I will click on show button. So as soon as I click on show button, as you can see that on the back end, price per unit and the variable cost per unit changes. And ultimately we can see that if company can go with the best scenario, it can earn a profit of 65,000. Now later on, if the manager says, what if we go for the base case? So I will click on base and I will click on show. So if the company goes with the best base scenario case, definitely the profit will reduce or decrease, right? So ultimately, we can change the scenarios one by one, okay, in the scenario manager. But what if we have created 3 different scenarios and we need to see all them together? We need to see all them together in a different spreadsheet. So yes, we have that option available as well. So you can see there is an option called summary. When I click on summary, and it gives me two options: either create a scenario summary or create a pivot table of the scenario. So first we will try to create a scenario summary, and I will press OK. So as soon as I create a scenario summary, you can see that on one spreadsheet we can see 3 different scenarios at one time, right? Now there is one limitation, or might be your question comes in. You can say, Rahim sir, instead of this B4, B6, and B7, I need the names of these variables, because I can't see the names here, and I need to link manually. No, that's not the case. If this kind of situations comes in where you see the absolute cell references, and instead of these cell references, you need to get the names of the line items. So let me tell you a quick technique and we will improve our scenario summary sheet. For doing that, for getting a names in the scenario summary sheet, what you need to do is basically you need to give the names to these cells, and there is a concept called named ranges. I hope that some of you have an idea that what are name ranges. Basically, we define a name ranges, we give a name of our own choice in Microsoft Excel. It can be related to one cell, it can be related to multiple arrays as well. So for giving a quickly name to a cell, there are multiple ways to do it. The first way is go to the name box, type the name manually. The second way is go to the formulas tab, and from the name manager you can define a name of that cell. But let me show you one very good technique, giving multiple cells names within a second. Okay, so defining all the cell names, giving them names, what I will do is I will select this entire range, okay, these 4 lines, and I will go to formulas tab. I will click on create from selection, and here from the create from selection window, I will select left column. Now why I am choosing the left column here? Because these cells will be defined names, but those names will be picked by the left column. Okay, so this 1000 cell, which is B3, will be given a name which is called quantity from the left side. So all the names are presented on the left side. That's why we are choosing left column. So that this means all these 4 number cells will be defined a name from the left side. Okay, and when I press OK, and then I will go to the name manager, you can see that within seconds all these 4 cells has got their names, right? Now let's see, if I create a scenario manager now, So instead of those absolute cell references, could we find out the names, proper names or not? So for doing that, what we can do is we will go to the data tab, what if analysis, and we will click on scenario manager. And we know that we have already defined 3 scenarios. So I will quickly jump to the summary part and I will click on OK. So now as you can see that price, instead of B4, it's giving us price per unit. Instead of B5, it's giving us variable cost per unit, a proper name of the report. Okay, a proper name of the report. Now, why B7 is being allocated here? Because I have not defined the cell profit here. For example, if I define the cell B7 into a profit name, and when I regenerate the summary, this will also not show. Okay, so let me do it. Data tab, what if analysis, scenario manager, and a summary. So now as you can see that whatever names we will be defining for those cells will appear in the scenario summary spreadsheet. Okay. Now the last part of this webinar, and I'm going quickly because we have another webinar at 4 regarding the SPSS. So that's why I have choose this short webinar technique for the power learning hours regarding to the what if analysis. So the last thing which is remaining for our this webinar is that you have seen 2 features which is called prevent and hide. And then we will be using those features, right? So prevents users from modifying the scenario at a later date, a later time. This will only take effect when the worksheet is protected. So it happens that when you share a financial model with someone else, you protected the sheet. So you don't want to prevent the changes of your scenarios, right? In that case, you use the prevent changes. And about the hide prevents the user from being able to see the scenario when the workbook is open. So that's how you can hide the scenario from the user as well. Okay. So that's all from my part for this webinar.